The clock right on time. Okay, so hi Eugene again. Can you please confirm that you can hear me, see my screen, and see my camera well?
Yep. Yep. I can hear you. I can see your camera. We can see your screen. Everything's looking good.
Awesome. So we can start our security session of the day.
Yep.
Uh, okay, good morning, good day, or good evening all. Our topic of this session is data security. If this was an offline event and they could see your faces, then probably I would start it with ask you to raise your hand if your organization was not under cyber attack in the last year. Dealing with security, our basic premise should be that we are always under attack. In fact, if your organization have not been under attack according to what you say, then there are two options. The first option is that you simply do not understand that there was attacks all the time,
Right.
and even maybe hacked because you didn't know about the attack. The option number two is yes, the attack is just coming in few hours or day. So let's get into the session and improve our security. More than this, we are working with databases, and databases are the first resource which attacker like to direct to. All the data is there, all the information is there. You may be surprised to know that a significant percentage of the threat are from inside the organization and not from outside attacker. Whether intentionally or accidentally, like for example, information leakage. So the questions that we are dealing with is what do we need to secure? Against what do we need to secure? And finally, how to secure. Secure data include three main tasks: discover, protect, and detect. We need to discover what to protect. We need to protect the data, and we need to monitor and detect the attacks. So let's go over the features which we have and were added in the several last years in order to organize our data and secure it. Okay, but before moving forward, I think that this is a good time to present myself. So my name is Ronen Ariely. I'm from Israel, as Eugene mentioned before we started, and this is directly related to our session, as I will show you in several minutes. I'm a senior consultant and an architect. I work in the field of developing and data platform. My main focus is designing enterprise level platform. And as I always say, thinking outside the box is my main tool. We will start with the first security tool for today, data discovery and classification. Now, I don't want to talk too much. I want to go to demo as fast as we can, so just a few words about it. This tool helps us to scan the database and provide recommendation about columns which might store sensitive data. The analyze is done by checking the column's name according to the set of security rules. So let's go and start with the demo. Okay, we will work with the advanced work. And in order to start, we need to go to data, discovery, and classification. We will start with classificate the data. And once we execute it, it was very fast. You didn't feel, but there was a process, and we got information that we have 31 columns in this database, which might store sensitive data. Let's go from the top to the bottom and understand what we have here in the report. But before this, we need to understand why it was so fast. So the reason that it was so fast is what I mentioned before. The tool scaled the metadata, not the data itself. And this means that it's pretty safe as well. It does not need to change any data at this time. Okay, so we see that we have 31 columns. Let's click it. And now we get the information about the columns, which the tool thought might be including with sensitive data. For example, we have a column named username. I don't know, but username sounds something that probably include username. So it's sensitive data. Microsoft decided to put this every time that you will have a column named username, the tool will find it as a sensitive. Now we can see that we have information of the type of the data. This is what the tool thought about. And he found that this is credential information. But when I'm going to the birthday, he finds that this is a date of birth. And if this is not correct, we can always fix it. We can change a different information type that fit our data. At the same time, you're probably familiar with the GDPR. And part of the sensitive label that the tool gives us are related to the privacy. So for example, birthday is under the privacy of the European law, and we can change it and do whatever we want here. Our task next is to go over all the columns which were discovered by the tool and choose which of those columns are really sensitive data. Why this tool is so important? Because in a production database, we have tens of tables, maybe hundreds or thousands of columns, and we cannot really know what we want to secure and what not. So this tool only gives us the first step. It tells us, oh, I found those now. We have the filter, we can go around and decided, for example, let's find the credit here, credit card ID. I say, yeah, this is sensitive. Let's mark it. Go over all the columns that you want to mark, and we need to say we accept the selected recommendation. Okay, so now we have one column that was selected. We have 30 columns that we can add if we want. And what about the columns that the tool didn't find? So we can always go to add classification and find other tools in our database. I'm just selecting one, it's not important. Let's say the error log, it's sensitive. This is the table. Let's find it something. Username. Again, type. Networking and confidential. Add. Okay. After we finish to select on the column that we want to classify, we can go and save what we have done. When we save the information, the data is actually written. And the data is written to the database itself. Next, we can go to view the report. And this is very important because all of us work, everyone have a boss. It's not matter if it's the boss at work or the wife at home, but we always need to report to someone. So those reports can help you to take the work that we have done and send it to the people that want to know what we have done. Going back to the tool, we can always use refresh if something was changed. I suppose there are no questions at this point, but if there are, please feel free to put them on the chat, and our moderator will help me to monitor the questions. Okay, so we are going now. Yes. I mentioned that I'm from Israel, and this is related to this tool. Actually, many of the tools and the features that we will talk about in the security category are developed here in Israel. And this is related to Israel for another reason, which I hate. And we will see it right now. You probably would think that if the people that develop something are native Hebrew speakers, so this tool will support Hebrew. This is makes sense, right? So what I'm doing here, I create a simple table, and if you do not know Hebrew, what you do not understand here are some words in Hebrew, sensitive word. I will go through some of them. The one at the bottom, it's a Netherlands word for social fiscal number. And the one above it, it's security number, which obviously it's supposed to be sensitive. Above it, I wrote security number, but without spaces. Shortcut for security number that come together with the word personal, important demo, and some English word that include a sensitive name like personal, my credit, the word credit, and SSN. Okay, let me add the table. After I will go to the right database, of course. Okay. Awesome. Let's open the tool again and check what was changed. Refresh. We have 35 now. We had before this only 31. Let's see what was changed. Here, those are the column in the new table. So let's see. Personal, yeah, it find it because the word personal in English. Personal XXX, again, we have personal, it find it. Personal and something with Hebrew, it find it. We will see what happened in several minutes. SSN, and this is the last one. Where are all the Hebrew? This tool does not support Hebrew. I can tell you that I spoke with the program manager, Ronen Ariely, about this. I really hate the feeling of this. I don't know how to call it. It's not a bug. I understand the reason. Israel is very small. It makes no sense to start develop something for a small group. But again, this is just the story. But more important, this is not only Hebrew. I'm taking Hebrew as an example. Let's move to the next step after we need to select our new row. So let's, for example, select this one. This row that the name include personal and something in Hebrew. And of course, we need to click on accept the new. And finally, save. Voila. What can you say? There is error. This is not a matter of not supporting a language. This is a bug, as I see it. SQL Server permits us to use non-English characters, Unicode characters for names. The table's name can be in any language that we want. So it makes no sense that if I select a table with a name in Hebrew, I will get an error. But this is the option, and this is not in only in Hebrew, as I said. So you need to remember that this tool does not work well in non-English languages. Okay, we must fix it by removing this. We cannot classify this column. Refresh. Okay. Where is the data? We just save a lot of data. This data was saved in the database. It is part of the database now, and the question is where. So it's very important to understand that SQL Server 2019 changed the way the data is saved and the way that we are using the data. So before 2019, first of all, if you are using older version, in order to select the data, to view the data, we can find it in the extended properties. Extended properties, it's something very old, exists for many years. It's a very powerful tool. Unfortunately, most of the DBAs do not use it. Microsoft uses it a lot. I will show you right now. We are using the advanced work 2019. And if I select all the extended properties from that database, if I will go to the right database, of course, then you will see that we have a lot of information. The extended properties basically give us the option to add text description for entities. It is very important, very useful. Use it. And before 2019, Microsoft used this existing feature in order to save the new data about the certificate here. Not certificate, classification, sorry. And this tool only allow us to store one value. So in order to store both the type and the label, for each one of the classification that we added to the database, there were 2 rows that added to the extended properties. Just go over very fast how we work with extended properties. I do not execute it because we are working with 2019. So if we want to add a new properties, we can extended properties, we can use the add extended store procedure, and then we can check the information. We can use update, and we can use drop. And this is what happened before 2019. One row was added under this name, and one row was added under this name for each classification. SQL Server 2019 changed the game and make it much, much more simple. Now, the classification are stored here. And only one row for each classification, very simple to organize. And here are the 3 rows that I selected with their information. Okay, before 2019, we had an option to work with Transact SQL in order to add classification and remove, but only in the Azure SQL. SQL Server 2019 is the first version who gave us what look natural for any DBA, the option to actually work directly with Transact SQL. And it's very simple the way that we work. So remember that what I'm doing now work only from 2019 on premise but on the Azure, it worked before. In order to add sensitive classification, we use this command, very simple. And here we can add multiple columns that we want, not even in the same table. We can just add all the columns that we want, which have the same label and the same information type. So for each label and information type, we add several columns. And if we need to drop, again, we can drop one or multi classification. And as we saw, this is the way that we check the information. And this takes us to the next tool, right on time. Okay. We discovered the sensitive information according to the columns. Let's move to vulnerability. So the next tool that we are going to go over. Oh, first of all, let's go fast, just explain what we have here. So the first one is the classified data. This is what we have done now. The second one is generate the report. This is the same report that I generated with the GUI. You can generate it without creating the classification if it was already classified before. This is very interesting option. We can export the information that we have, all the rules that Microsoft use in order to classify the data, and we can manipulate them. Let's go over this very fast. We will save it here in my desktop. I have some here. Yeah, okay, save, close. Let's open it, this. And this is what we have behind the screen. This is the set of the rules that Microsoft use. This is the default. And now we can go and manipulate this. We can remove, we can add, we can change the default to other. The format of this is very simple. We don't have time to dive deep. Today is more of a review and dive into a specific point. But this is very simple. You can just add more word. For example, you can see IP. It's a sensitive word. And this give you a structure, a regular expression, which use IP and address. And this is the way that we can manipulate. After we finish to manipulate, we need to do something with what we have just changed. And this is done with the next one. So set. Set means the import the information. Export is what we have done. Reset is reset to the field default. Next tool that we are talking about is the vulnerability assessment. Both tools were added in 2016, but there are a lot of changes that were added in 2019, as we saw. So let's go to the vulnerability assessment and start with scan for vulnerability. When we go to the wizard, we first need to select where we want to save the data. Why? Not in the database? No. This tool is totally different. The classification is something internal. The data is stored in the database, but the vulnerability, sorry, is external tool, and we can store the data anywhere that we want. We can even store several versions of this for several groups that we work with. So I selected one place that I will store, and let's create our report. Awesome. And this is the report. Let's see what we got. So this is what we have, the new folder that we had before, and we have inside this another folder. For instance, the vulnerability tool does not mean to be done only for one instance. This is a professional tool for people that maybe have 10 or 10,000 instances of SQL Server. So you can point everyone to the same folder. For each instance, you will get a different separate folder. And inside the folder, we can see the information. Let's go to the tool and create more information. So what do we see in this tool? We will start from the above. So first of all, we see the number of fail. What fail? Rules. This based on rules that Microsoft redesign or replan. We will go over it. And we see that we have 34 rules that pass. So we are in pretty good shape. I will show you why, because those two rules are almost always appear. And we have summarized in graph how many high level of risk we have and medium risk. So we want to get more information. We can go to the list of past rules or failed. And if I want to get the detail, I just need to click on one of them and I'm getting all the details. Let me move this up. It will give us more place to read. If I will find where is the scroller? My mouse do not stop. Oh, where are you? Okay, we'll continue like this. Okay, so let's go over the detail that we have. I started with the DBA user should not be used for a normal service. This makes sense. This is a security rule. And what this tool does, simply check if we have more than one user. If we have only one user, so it is probably the DBO and it alerts us, hey, this is not good. You need to create a user in each database. And if we will go down, we will see more information. So it's failed, it gives us the full description of why, and it gives us query. And this is the one top thing that I like about this tool. This query is something that we can use outside the tool. I can take this query, open it separately, and I can execute here. But more important, But more important is that I can take this query to other environment. I can actually execute the query without the tool. I don't need the tool theoretically. It's only a graph, a GUI. And I will show you what I did with all those queries after we will continue to move about what we have. Okay, so we have the query, which is something I love a lot. We can learn from it, we can work with this, and we have the information that this is not set as a baseline. We will speak about the baseline in a second. It failed, of course, and it gives us what to do. It's not give us anything if we have a problem and no one knows how to fix it. This tool gives us also the recommendation of what next, what to do. In this case, it's very simple. The problem was that there was only one user, so it's create another user. What is this baseline that we spoke about? Microsoft gave us a set of rules, but what if we want to ignore some of the rules? For example, I'm using a lot of in my applications SQL CLR. SQL CLR, in a way, is something that might be related to vulnerability. So there is a rule that check. If you enable SQL CLR, you will see an alert, but I don't like this alert. So in my case, I didn't got it here. I will go to the rule that I don't want the tool to continue check, and I simply say approve as baseline. I get an alert. Are you sure? Because we don't like it. We as Microsoft, I say yes. And this was added if I had the permission. And we can, of course, clear the baseline for each one of the tool that we approve as baseline. Next, we can go okay. Don't save the information in place that there isn't option to work with. Here are all what was saved. You remember we had only one before. Everything that we just start to work with is added to our folder of the instance. And all this information create a baseline that we can now take to another environment and have the same baseline of what rules we want to use or not. So this is very important. And more important is that now I can create another baseline in the same machine because maybe I developed something else. So this is, in short, the vulnerability tool. Any questions till here?
No, no questions so far. So far, going good.
Good or sleeping? We always
Yeah, one or the other.
Dilemma. It's the dilemma of the speakers in the virtual meeting.
Yeah.
You know, if it wasn't virtual, I could just take something and throw
Right.
on the person asleep, but here I cannot even see the camera. I assume that, I want to assume that everything is perfect because we are going right on time. So let's continue to work with more information. Okay. Well, here. This is part of the queries that I said to you that I can take and I can learn from them. Those queries, for example, were very useful for me in production. Maybe I could find, not maybe, but we could find them on Google, but when we have the tool, the GUI, we can just pull the query. But I took it to the next level. What I did was this. You see this long file? I start to copy all the queries from the tool and develop my own tool. I use this tool in order to pull the queries. I put them together, combine them with union all. Of course, I needed to manipulate them a bit, not a lot, because each query return a different number of columns or different types. So I did very small manipulation. Most of the queries only return 0 or 1. And after I did all this, I can execute all the queries together. And I'm not in the right database. So I need to move to the right database, but in the TempDB, this is the result that I got. So check what I have. I have a vulnerability assessment without vulnerability assessment. Who need Microsoft? I have all the tool. I just need the queries. So I don't have it GUI, and I have all the information, what passed and what failed. But I took it to the next level. We have another level, you know, the sky are the limit. And what I did, actually, this was the purpose. I took the application Azure Data Studio, and I took this information and I created a widget, a simple widget, which I don't have right now, but I will show you the recording of the widget that I have here. Yeah. Somewhere here. Okay, if I will not find it, I will skip it. And I will tell you that I can send it to anyone who want. I'm sorry, it was in the right place. One more second. Okay, we will skip it. So what I have done, I basically used the Azure Data Studio and I created a widget which take all those queries one by one and create a graph that tell me what is working and what is not. So I don't need to go here to the SSMS and every time go here, do this task, too long for me. I use this tool in order to get a better tool using the Azure Data Studio, and I recommend to do it because this takes a lot of time to do every time, and what happens is that people do not do it. I want to speak about some more features that were added if we have time. So let's speak about the three main features that were added in 2016. In 2016, we have three features that were added. Dynamic data masking, row level security, and always encrypted. We'll go back to the presentation for a very short time. We will skip all this, jump to the next one. Dynamic data masking. So dynamic data masking is a process that hides the original data, partially or fully, at a real time. It is not related to the data in the database. It's only when we pull the data on the fly. It do it by displaying different data instead of the original data. So the application gets something back, but not the real data. For example, let's think about a situation that we have a secretary that work with a credit card, and she only need the last 4 digits of the card. So the tool can hide all the rest of the information, and the client, the end user, will only see the 4 digits. This is something that we cannot do if we will change the data in the database. This is something that we need to do on the fly. Now, I want to show you what is so important regarding security in having this tool. The most common procedure usually that we do as developer is managing the masking on the client side. If you are a developer, usually you have application and you say, okay, I get the data, I will hide part of it, I will show the users only part of the credit ID. The problem with this procedure is that even if we choose a very low level near the database, there is always a chance that something will come between the database and our application. Even if we are using proxy, which is very near in the network structure to the database. And those attacks that called a Wireshark, man in the middle, are exactly what we are afraid of. So the advantage now is that we move the masking inside the database. Nothing can be in the middle. A short demo, according to the time, very short it will be. Okay, let's use the master. Let's create. Okay, Let's see that I don't have anything here to remove. I do have. This will be the next one. Great. I will create a new database. We'll use the database, create a user in the database. And again, use the database, create a simple table, nothing new at this time. I will add 2 rows, select the row just to show you what we have. Remember this information about, because we are going to mask the information now, and then I will show you something which is undocumented. I will show you how to crack it. Yes, we can hack it. And this tool, very simple to be hacked. So let's start to implement the masking. In order to implement, we can use several different functions. This is outside the scope of today's session. I will just do the work and start to mask the row, the column. Sorry. Execute. Okay. Let's give permission to the user on those tables and start to see what happened. I execute now a simple query of select when I'm the sysadmin. I have all the permission, I see all the data. Now I do a simple personalize to the other user. This is the user that does not have the permission to see the unmasked data, but it does have permission to select, to update, and all the DML queries. So let's execute. And this is the magic that we have here. We didn't need to do anything. The developer didn't need to develop any tool in the application side. We have a full masking environment. But we always have the important and the interesting part. Otherwise, you could tell me that, hey, I could find this in the documentation. Yes, but let's go over this. Everything that I'm doing from now, it is like I'm the user without a permission. You see, I executed as this user. If I will try to get the SSN of user ID 1, I will get a number, but this is a fake number. Every time that I execute, we get a different number because the function that I'm using to mask the SSN called randomize. So I don't have the information, and I will show you how I find the information. And the secret, the vulnerability that Microsoft have in the design is this. The masking, all the procedure of the masking is done at the end of the procedure. So I can do a lot of action in the query that will go to the beginning. For example, I'm doing this simple task. I'm adding a filter. I just want to get the information about SSN with specific number. Let's say SSN 1. Now, I don't have in the database any SSN with 1. Those are the real SSN. Okay? So if I will execute this, I will get that there is nothing. This makes sense. Until here, nothing changed. But when I work with this feature, it was in the preview, in the private preview. I reported this before it was released. I noticed that, hey, if we have an option to filter, this means that I can crack it. Why? Because I can actually go and change this number and go and try 2 and execute it. And then I will try 3 and 4 and 5. And in theory, I will continue to do it loop or other way, which is more, which is better for performance. But the basic idea is that I can scan all the options, and this called phishing in security. I can fish for the right number. And when I will get the right number, what will happen? I will not get the information. I do not get the real SSN, but I know that this is the SSN because I got to this number. This is the trick. And with this trick, I can crack all the dynamic data masking. So this was just a simple example. This will do it automatically and more efficient. What I found out that in the case of credit card, we don't want to do it in one big number because we have 9 characters in the number. I don't want to do a loop of a trillion numbers. It will not be useful. So what I do, I simply do it in 2 parts. I find the first 5 numbers using numbers between 1 to 10,000, and I find the 4 other numbers, and I'm not looping, I'm using a number table. And this way I can get the real number. So this is the SSN, it's the fake now a number, but the real SSN is there. I can execute it several times. The fake always change, the real stay the same, and it is very fast. But this was simple integer. Let's go to unmask the credit card, which is more complex structure, but it's the same. The credit card have 4 parts of small numbers. So this is what I'm doing, exactly the same procedure, and execute, and this is the real credit card of the user. Let's revert it and continue. What do you want to hear about the cracking more or about the features more? We have more crackings and we have more features to show.
Well, does anyone have a preference? Otherwise, I would say let's go for some more features.
Okay, I will go with the features, and I will give you only a tip. What is the basic way that we can crack? So another tool that was added in 2016 is the row level security. And this is a great tool that gives us the option to only select part of the rows according to rules that we decided. Let's implement it very fast. Okay, 1 second, it will be okay. Okay. I create a new database, like always. I create a new table, and I will add some data to the table. This is the data that we have. And now I just invite a rule that fit me how to use those rows in the table. So you can notice that we have 2 rows with the user code Ronen, 2 rows with the user code Ariely, and 1 row with the name IDNDUG, which is the Israel.net user group. So this will be the base for my filter for the row level security. And what I'm going to do is to create a simple function. 1 second. Let's first of all create users to play with, execute. And I will give them the permissions. And now I create a function. This is the security function. Everything is based on this. The logic of what we will see or what will be hidden depend on this function. In my case, the function used the logic that if the input, the user code, will be the username that I'm using, so it will return 1, which means it will show me the data. And if the username that execute the query is the sysadmin, meaning it will see DBO, so it will return the data as well. Let's create a function, security function, and let's create the security policy. The security policy use the security function. Okay, let's try to execute a simple select, but I'm using execute as the user Ronen. And you remember my rule? So execute. Oh, I see only the rows with the user code Ronen, because this is what I used in the security function. If the user that execute, which is me, Ronen, have the same name as the input to the function, which is the column, then show me. But if it wasn't the same, for example, there was one Ariely, then I cannot see it, I cannot use it. Be another user Ariely, I will see my rows. And of course, if I'm the sysadmin and I have all the permission, I can see everything. What is the time? Okay, we don't have time to crack all the features, but let's explain how simple it is. But it's totally different. It's in this case, I might say I didn't find the one before. I found it and I reported it during the preview, but this one, Microsoft reported it. Probably someone else found it and reported to them, but as much as I got it, Microsoft reported not exactly the bug, they just say that you should not use a query that have a filter like this. And this is all I needed. They actually taught me how to crack this feature. The minute that they, and this is in the documentation, it say not to use something like this. The minute that they told me this, I understood that I can use it to crack, and this is the reason. And what I'm using is this. Again, it's all a matter of what is going behind the skin and understand the internals of the SQL Server. You see, the filter is something that executes in the beginning of the process. And one of the things that always come first is estimated if we have a value that is divided by 0, for example. There are several, not all, but there are several errors which are estimated, and we get them in various tasks that we do not get other errors. And divided by 0 is one of them. So I know that if I will get an error divided by 0, it will be execute. I'm the user Ariely now, and I want to expose the data with the user code Ronen. So I add the filter user code Ronen. Until now, it's very simple. Sorry. But if I will execute this, I will not get any result. Obviously, I cannot get, sorry, if I will execute it as Ariely. I don't get any result because as Ariely, I'm not allowed to see those rows. But the trick is that if I will find a way to run this error in specific case, then I will get the error which will suggest what is the real value. Let's see what I'm doing here. I'm saying 1 divided to what? My value minus this constant. So all I need to do now is go again, 1, 2, 3, 4. I will try any option of numbers. In this case, we are talking about numbers, cannot be a character or something like else, which I will speak in a second. And once I find a number which is exactly the same like the value in the table, I will get an error. So I don't need to get the real value. I'm getting error only when I'm using the real value. So the in this case, what I want to get actually is the error, not the okay execution. You can use a loop or any other trick, collect all the numbers that you got error and you got all the credit card or all the rows that you should not supposed to see. This is about the row level security, and we have time only for one more or two more. So, and the third feature that was added in 2016 called Always Encrypted. Always Encrypted is a very interesting tool which is different from all other approach we have for security in the database. Let's move to this. What is the difference between Always Encrypted and all the rest of the encryption? If you remember at the beginning, I told you that one of the things that we need to ask ourselves before we start is from whom do we need to secure the data? Who is the threat for us? And this feature gives us the option to secure the data against the DBA. Yes, we want to hide the data from the DBA. Think about it. We are using a tool, we're using a service. We give for Microsoft employees, for example, or any other company that hosts our database. We give them the option to use and read our database. This means that the database is exposed. All the other features that we have in the database to secure until 2016 are based on two options, or putting the certificate, the security information inside the database, which means that the DBA and anyone who have a permission on the database level can use it. Or the second option is to manage it externally in our application, which can be very consuming of time. So this feature gives us the option to encrypt the data in the client side. We will not go deeply into it, but you need to remember the basic is that we are using the data in the application side. We speak with the server through the provider. The provider itself needs to support this tool, and then the provider manage the certificate. It takes the certificate that called master from the database. This includes the information about where the certificate that is used to actually encrypt the data, and then it uses it in order to encrypt another key, but everything is done in the client side. The server does not have any option to work with the data, with the exposed data. This brings a very problematic limitation. The server cannot work with the exposed data. So how the hell the server can do an action like give me all the data that is bigger than 10? We cannot use a filter like where and bigger. And if we are using encryption, which is not deterministic, so we cannot even use a filter like bring me the row that the column equal specific value, because the server don't know what is the exposed value. So in 2019, we have a new feature, which is improvement of this feature, and it's called always encrypted with secure enclave. And this is advanced feature which use the hardware of Intel that added the support for enclave. In two sentences, enclave is like a separate place in the CPU that is only for this security storage. No one can work with this directly. In order to work with this, we need to work with the certification, the certificate that we are using, and we need to speak with this and everything to confirm that it actually have the security privilege. The SQL Server don't have the privilege to work with this directly, but it does work with this through us. And this brings us to summarize, because we are exactly at 1 hour after the start. So if there are questions, we can go over them. If you want more tip, we can give more tip about security. There are a lot of more features which were added or improved. But if I want to summarize, so let's go what we did today. So basically we explain data security is something that need to be done in 3 tasks, like before actually secure and after we need to monitoring. We didn't speak about the monitoring at all. We didn't plan to speak about it. The features which we mentioned for the before, for the discovery part, were discovery and classification, and the vulnerability assessment. Next, we move to the actual secure, and we show how we can use dynamic data masking, row level security. We show that we can crack those and how to crack those on the way if you want a bit more internal information. And we just spoke very briefly about the always encrypted, and not even spoke about it, but mentioned the new always encrypted with Enclave. And this gave me the option to actually hope that you enjoyed the session and found this interesting, and most important, that you found it practical.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know. I definitely enjoyed it. I knew about the ways to crack the dynamic data masking, but I didn't realize that even with row level security, you could do some data exfiltration.
Yeah, but it's totally a different trick. You saw the row level security.
Right.
Let's talk about it a bit more. We have the time between.
We've got a little bit of time.
The row level security, I can give you some more tips because it's more difficult. In order to do in order to expose the masking data was very simple. Even if the masking weren't numbers, we can do the same trick, exactly the same trick with string or with date or with anything, because all we need to do is to compare two values, no matter what type. But the row level security was more complex, because I based all the trick on mathematical operation. One divided to something that need to be 0. So I show you how I can reveal a social number, for example, or a credit card. But I will ask you, I think, How can I use it, for example, if I have dates?
Well, I mean, my guess, I don't know if anyone here has any ideas, but my guess is that you would find some way to modify the date so it's out of the valid range for dates. So you try to set it before, you know, the year zero or
Exactly.
something like that.
We
Yeah.
need to find a way to convert it to numbers. And date is very simple. I can just use something like a date different between the value in the column, the date, and the specific value, like a date in 2000, in January 2000. So date is very simple, but more complex. How I will work with a string? Let's say that I want to work with string. Let's
I'm not
think
sure.
about the dynamic data masking, and I want to expose string. In this case, I cannot start to compare all the option of strings. This is not like numbers that I can say, okay, let's do a loop between 1 and
Right.
10,000. How can I find the password and expose it?
Yeah, my first thought would be trying to do an implicit conversion to something of like a
the
smaller
same
size.
trick.
Oh.
Same trick like in the date.
Just get it outside the range. But what would you
Find a way to convert, to map it. You need to find a way to map. And it's very simple with a string. What is a string? It's characters. And characters are mapped using the code point according to the encoding that we use.
Sure.
So we can use the code point for each character. And this way we can expose the password, which could be anything. So it's very simple actually, because we only have, how much we have character in Unicode? Several 100,000, it's nothing. It's not even a million. So yes, we can expose everything with tricks. It's all building trick on trick. And this takes us to summarize what next. So I want to mention that you can contact me on Facebook if you want and send me feedback and comments about this meeting. Please remember that the feedback is really important. It's the only way that we, the speakers, can actually improve ourselves and to know what to do better or if it was okay. I highly appreciate getting feedback. At the beginning of December, I want to promote the next event. I will speak at the Data Platform Summit 2020. This lecture at the summit will not be the same type of the lecture today that I gave. It's going to be a level 500 internals. So today I just mentioned tricks about how to crack. The next session is 100% undocumented information, level 500 about the internals. You are welcome to join me. And hopefully I will be able to teach something new. More information. Yes.
We've got just to let you know, we've got a little bit more time. We have some questions. So when you're done talking about how people can connect, we've got a couple questions and some time to touch on
if
those.
there are a question,
yeah.
Ask.
Yeah. So a couple of different things that came up. Someone was asking, when you had that script during the vulnerability assessment section, they were trying to understand what the code was doing. I mean, my understanding, and I don't know if I got this right or not, but you were taking these queries that Microsoft engineers had written for their tool, and you were pulling it out and making it so you could run it yourself, so that you didn't have to manually run this tool every time, and so you could go ahead and run it on a different database you could run it manually, you could schedule it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
exactly.
Or yep.
I
Okay.
just I just pulled all the queries. It's a lot of work. It's not so simple because each query return totally different information, and I want to put it all in one table. So there are several queries that I added fake empty columns, for example. I needed to do some convert, but basically, yes, I took the queries for Microsoft as it is, put it inside a CTE, and then I could manipulate it and add columns, convert columns, and I got this long page with all the queries. This is not the full page. The full page is like about 10 times this page.
Gotcha.
But this is what I prepare for this meeting because I didn't find the one that I prepared before. It was several years in 2016.
Sure.
So something like this. So I just prepare this and collect those, but we see exactly the effect that I wanted. We get one place. I don't need the GUI. This is the information that the GUI give us, not more, not less.
Right.
So I just execute the query.
Yeah. Great. Another question that we had is Narayana is all of his databases or her databases or their databases are running on SQL 2016, and generally they're using encryption with a symmetric key. And they just wanted to know if there's anything new between 16 and 2019 with regard to that kind of encryption. I'm not aware of anything, but you might know if there's something. I haven't heard anything.
Symmetric key. There are a different way to use it. The feature that are added is not another symmetric or asymmetric key.
Right.
The features that are added are features that use the keys. For example, the always encrypted is using key, the same idea of key, but it uses it differently. So no, specifically, I don't think that anything related to this. Any more questions?
One last one. So Janek is asking, when we were talking about these cracking possibilities and that kind of stuff, they asked if always encrypted with an enclave is considered to be free of such vulnerabilities. And I would think so, because the DBA doesn't even have access.
It's totally not related.
Yeah.
Always encrypted is encryption. What I spoke about, row-level security and dynamic data masking, is not encryption.
Right.
Okay, masking is not encryption. We don't have any security key that need to be used in order to encrypt the data. Always encrypted, if you want to crack it, you need to actually crack the key that is used. And this is possible, but this is a different procedure. In this case, it's not so difficult because the key is not at Microsoft. The important key, it's not at Microsoft, but in the client side. So this brings us maybe to a small tip. There are several places that you can store the key for the always encrypted. One of them is the Azure. So you can ask yourself, 1 second, if I'm using the Azure, I will store it in the Azure. So basically, I gave it to Microsoft. So why do I need always encrypted? We say that always encrypted is something against the people that manage the database. So we have a problem with the chicken and the egg. The same question raised when we are speaking about the always encrypted with a secure enclave, because the enclave is in the server side. So basically, theoretically, they have it, but they cannot enter it, they cannot use it, because it is talking only with the client. So it's sitting there, but it speaks with the client. So back to the option to use the key in the Azure. I'm talking now about always encrypted. It gives you some advantages. It's good idea to put it in the Azure if you don't have a problem with the network, because the Azure have another security of Microsoft above it, and probably no one at Microsoft will waste his time to crack a specific security key or find it or make the relation between the key to the database. It is almost impossible.
All right. Yeah, that's all the questions. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So the most important is thank you, Eugene, and above all, thank you all the participate that came to the session. I wish you all a great day and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And since I don't know how to close this meeting, so it's bye-bye and we can continue. That's okay. I'm here.